This is Laugh or Death, hosted by keynote speaker Paul Ozenkup.
Well, I'm very excited to have my guest here today. And if you listen to, I think it's episode 3 of the podcast, you will remember Erin Pash, who is an entrepreneur. She started and founded Ellie Mental Health, which went on to become one of the fastest growing mental health organizations in the country. And now she is the owner and CEO of Pash Company, and specifically has founded Caveman to Casanova, which is an app that is an alternative to couples therapy. And she's an all-around great person. My favorite well, I have to say one of my favorite Minnesotans, because Erin, the last time I'm in trouble for saying my favorite Minnesotan, I have one of my best and longest friends listen to that podcast and said, "Hey, great episode." And I was like, "Thanks." And she goes, "Favorite Minnesotan?"
Who is she?
So
I'll
there we
find
go.
her. We can just start with we can also start the Minnesotan way, which is the best of 3 rock, paper, scissors.
That's right, yeah. But we'll hash this out the Minnesotan way. We'll see who has the best tater tot casserole.
Yeah, hot dish, actually.
Yeah.
It's hot dish. But
The
yes.
hot dish. That's right, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
well, good to have you back.
I love coming on your podcast. I love all the episodes you release. They're amazing. They're true to who you are, and it's so fun to listen to.
Awesome. Well, I know last time, we always start with like, what's something weird about you that you love? And last time you talked about cute aggression and how you just want to squish little babies and kittens and your kids' faces and all that kind of stuff. So we know something weird about you. I thought we would do just a little speed round of weird questions to get to know you even more.
I'll do anything
With
once. Yep.
Okay. And you can say pass at any point if you got nothing.
Okay.
Okay. Here we go.
Cool.
What's something you believed way too long that you're now embarrassed about?
Oh.
I can give you an example.
That chocolate milk came from brown cows.
That chocolate milk came from, and how old were you when you realized that was not true?
Oh, an adolescent, probably. I had no one ever corrected this story, and I didn't know, and I spit it off like it was a fact for a long time.
That's one of those things where you're like around your friends and you're like, "No, oh, it comes from brown cows," and then your friend's like, "You're an idiot."
Yes, that's exactly how it went down. Thank you. Yep.
Yeah, I had like inner ear issues my whole life, and I would get chronic ear infections in my right ear. And my mom always told me as a kid, like, you don't talk on the phone with your right ear. You always use your left. For one, because I could hear better. And for two, because it would be chronically infected. And I thought that she was just saying that as like people don't, like it's an etiquette thing. And so
Yes.
I literally was in college my freshman year, and this kid, Jason, is talking on the phone on his right ear. And I go, "Dude, what are you doing?" And he's like, "What?" And I go, "You don't talk on the phone with your right ear." And like in that moment, I realized, I'm like, oh my God, that was just for me.
That was true. Yeah, that was just for Paul, not for everyone.
Yeah, he's like, "What?" And I'm like, "No, it's good." Okay, idiot. If your personality had a warning label, what would it say?
A lot.
A lot. Yeah.
A
Okay,
lot.
good. Little goes a long way. Okay, good.
Yes.
That's a good warning. I like it. What's a completely irrational fear that you have?
Oh, breaking all my teeth off on a countertop.
Huh.
Sorry. New fear
Think
unlocked.
about often?
A lot, and it freaks me out. I'm so like, I like take so seriously, like, you are not in the bathroom wet any longer than you need to be. There are way too many countertops that you can break all your teeth on. My heart starts pounding just talking about it out loud.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Yeah, now the two of us, you've given that fear to me.
Fear
the person
unlocked. You're welcome.
listening right now. Yeah.
Yes.
About fear of countertops. And as short as I am, countertops are like the perfect height at my teeth usually. So that's even more true.
It just hurts to talk about it.
That's funny. Okay. And what's like, what are the dumbest hills you're willing to die on? Like a just ridiculous hot take or?
Well, I mean, I don't know if it's a hot take, but like, we will never backtrack. I don't care if we've left everything at home. We will buy new things instead of turn this car around.
Please, you're like 2 blocks from the house for a family vacation. One of the kids is like, "I forgot my phone." Well, it looks like
You're going to get an iPhone 17, the newest one. We're
Yeah.
not like, I will not do it. I will never. The only time this happened is we were halfway to Chicago. So Minneapolis to Chicago was like 5.5 hours, and we are like 3 hours in. It was horrible. We left at like 6 o'clock in the morning in the winter. It was cold. The kids started getting like car sick because they couldn't see out the windows. It was like -6 degrees outside. And by the time we had pulled over and decided we needed to take the kids home because this was too much, we also realized I left my purse at home. And I don't know if you know, but all the IDs and credit cards, like you can't even buy new stuff when you left your stuff at home if you don't have it. So I like begrudgingly, we turned around. And
Fine,
we
we
did it.
have to.
And I will never do it ever again.
Yeah, like you leave the garage door open in the middle of winter. It's like, looks like the pipes are going to burst. We're going to have to get a new house, but we're not
Correct.
turning
Yep.
around.
We are not turning this car around. I'm like the opposite of every mean mom. We will not be canceling the fun because you screwed up.
Yeah, exactly. We're having fun and you're going to love it.
Stop your
it's-
stuff. Yeah.
That's great. Okay, good. And then one more. Let's see. How about, do you have like a harmless or funny conspiracy theory? Something that you're like, here's something I secretly think.
A funny conspiracy theory. No, I mean, it's not really funny. I mean, maybe it is. But like some people think birds are fake.
Oh,
I
yeah. The whole
sometimes-
birds aren't real movement.
Yeah, I sometimes think that like birds are actually in charge. Like, think
Oh.
about it. There's so many more of them than us. They can fly. Like, if they wanted to cause some serious damage to the human population, they could, and they choose not to.
I like that theory. My dad always had this theory that hummingbirds were aliens. But my dad smokes a lot of weed, and so maybe that's part of where that theory came from.
It could be.
I call them nature's drones, they're just going,
Yeah, they can go forwards and backwards.
but I like that theory that, yeah, birds are actually in charge. Yeah. I have this weird conspiracy. That's not even really a conspiracy. It's just a weird take. And my fellow men out there are not going to like this take. But I have this thought of like, what if like men and women are both forms of human beings, but women are a slightly more advanced, evolved form. And once you get evolved enough to be able to be a woman, then you get to create new life. You get to get pregnant and have babies and stuff like that. So throughout history, we've evolved and we've lost things we don't need. Like like the appendix, the tail, we're starting to kind of just evolve past like
Oh,
really
I gotta
needed things.
stop you. We still have our appendix. We're still born with those.
No, we have an appendix, but like it doesn't have the uses.
don't need it.
We used to need it for digestion and stuff when we were like cave people. And now it's like kind of becoming this more and more useless thing. And even like ear muscles, we used to have way more ear muscles to be able to like move our ears to hear better. Body hair used to be much more prevalent. All these things when we were cave people that we are starting to evolve out of. And I was wondering, what if that's also the case for the penis? And that eventually it's like, once you get to the most highly evolved form of Homo sapien, you get to be a woman and procreate and give birth.
Yeah.
What do you think of that weird take?
I actually kind of like it. So I had interesting conversations with my 11-year-old son and his bestie. He was wearing like I'm a pretty well-known like spiritual agnostic person. I don't believe in organized religion, but he was wearing like a Jesus t-shirt, and this old man came up and gave him a hug and looked at me and goes, "Good job, Mom. You're raising him right." And I was like, "Thank you very much." And I took complete credit for it. And my best friend Erin was cool with it. This guy also didn't realize that my trunk was up on my car, and had he seen it go down, my license plate is Pop Mama's. So I don't think we probably align on much else. But I had this conversation with the kids about my belief, which is similar to that, is that women rule the spiritual world and men rule the physical world. And that's our jobs and our goal. And so we dominate later adulthood because we're just more spiritually connected to some things that we learn later on in life, but we aren't given the same physical strength or some of the same like presence opportunities in the physical world. And so we are just constantly kind of managing two different worlds where the hierarchy looks a little bit different.
Oh, I like that. That's a good, and then it's also like the spiritual world is like, yeah, we're connecting with our emotions and empathy and that kind of stuff. And
Relationships,
guys
yeah.
and the guy's like, I mowed the lawn. What are we
Exactly.
talking about here?
Exactly. Even just like the brute strength, like think about the different, it kind of explains the differences in our bodies and why, I also describe the thing, which I think is funny. And you have to tell me if you feel like this is true too. When kids are younger, or teenagers, it always feels like the girls are boy crazy and they're just chasing after boys. And the boys are like, I don't want to give them the time of day. And the girls are kind of like obsessive. And then there's like a thing that changes in like adulthood where it's like then the man becomes kind of slightly obsessed and the girl's like, I'm gonna have a wine night with my friends. And so there's like this evolution kind of from this physical, like we're very physical and concrete when we're younger. And so it kind of makes sense. And if we're ruling that, then we kind of like push people away. But then we get to this spiritual space where we're kind of like, whoa, and we evolve like in our own life, in our own actual life. And we're like, wow, I really want this, crave this, need the connection and whatever. And so like the roles also kind of switch.
Wow. Yeah, I never really thought about that. Yeah, and then it's kind of you get the classic kind of dog chasing cat, guy chasing girl kind of
Yeah.
trope. Yeah, yeah. Wow. Okay. Well, I'm glad we figured that out. I didn't know
Yeah.
my weird.
I don't think this is conspiracy theory. I think we've just decided this is a fact. Everybody, we're going to get some weird mail. And I'm here for it.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely going to get some weird comments for this. But we prefaced it with what's a weird theory you have, and that's there we go.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of men and women, like relationship, I was thinking a lot recently about like the male loneliness epidemic. What's your thoughts about that? Like, is that a real thing? I mean, as a therapist, is that something you've seen? Why does it exist if it does?
I've seen it a lot for a lot of years, and I think it has something to do with that shift I was just talking about. Like men and boys, they really like identify with peer culture when they're younger, right? Like I want to hang out with my bros, I want to do this. I think men tend to be higher risk takers. So a lot of the behavior that they engage in that like develops camaraderie is around substances or risk taking or things like that. And I think it becomes less sustainable as they get older. Like girls, we will just sit and yap until we run out of our voice. And I don't think that a lot, even though there's a lot of men who can have and really appreciate strong conversations, it's not really enriched and enlivened in them as a kid. And so as they get older and they're like, hey, I got 2 hours, it's like, oh, well, you can't go skydiving. Or I've got to pay my bills now, so I can't just like I'm doing ayahuasca ceremony in Peru. Like there's just less of this, and then what it turns into is maybe a little more drinking in the garage. And then it's like, and so it kind of like, and again, I'm totally generalizing here, but there just becomes this space of this kind of disconnect of as we grow in our adult lives and we have kids or we have a significant other, it just becomes hard to find that balance. And then before men know it, they wake up one day and they're like, where are my buddies?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and of course we're generalizing because, I mean, just the term male loneliness epidemic, sure. I mean, of course there's men out there that aren't lonely, have plenty of friends, but these things become something based on that there may be a large amount of this happening. And I agree with you. I also think like, at least for myself, when I was a young man, I had so much identity around sports and teams and that kind of stuff. And then, like you said, you lose that over time. Like I'm 49 years old. I'm not going to be playing too many organized sports anymore. Like, but that's how I would bond. There's a comic, I can't remember who it is, that has a great bit about, it might be Jim Gaffigan, I'm not sure, a great bit about like, I go play golf with my buddy and then I come home and my wife is like, how's Gary? Like, I don't know, good. What's going on with, like, aren't they getting married soon? I don't know. Didn't you just spend 4 hours with him? Yeah, but about that, we talked about golf and like others,
Yeah.
It's like we don't connect. But like women, I know like my wife, for example, and her best girlfriends, one of whom is our friend Jamie in Minneapolis. Hi, Jamie. But they talk openly about like therapy and counseling and feelings and that kind of like, just like, oh yeah, my counselor said this and we're doing it like, but even guys that I know that do therapy don't talk about it with other dudes.
Yeah, I think it's so like, here's what I can tell you as somebody who is an elder millennial, but also has worked with lots of people who are boomers in therapy and now raising my own kids. It's a pendulum shift, right? Like I think boomers especially when they were raised, it was, there was a lot of survival in there. It wasn't as much technology. And it was a lot of like, we just get through hard things and cope with the way we know how. Sometimes that was, beating their wives and children, which was, we learned is just never okay. Sometimes it was substance abuse, but everybody has this dark emotional side of them or this shadow side of them that needs some kind of expression. And men were taught that you can be angry and you can be happy. And
Yeah.
girls were taught that we're allowed to be more than that. And so we just have the language for it. We were taught that we're supposed to be loving and caring and nurturing, and the only one who cries are girls. And so it was kind of a gift, over the last 100 years to be told that emotions are for girls, because it has allowed us to evolve in this kind of spiritual world where a lot of men, I would say men who are, and again, we're generalizing, but 30 and older now still experience pretty significant feeling suppression as kids is just a part of the intergenerational growth. Now I can tell you that, again, to these same two boys, they're 11 and 12. Literally, when they say goodbye to each other, they give like eye contact, 9-second hugs, and they're like, "Hey, love you, man. See you later." And it's completely platonic kind of love. Like the boys are just like that. They talk about going to therapy. They talk about their feelings. They cry in front of each other. They'll even cry in baseball and then hold each other up to like be accountable to like, nope, that's just how the game was played. You got a rough call, like all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of fun to see across generations, and that's like 4 generations apart of
Yeah.
kind of, and I like to take credit because I'm a millennial and I'm a mom and I'm a therapist. So we kind of like, we got a lot of short ends of sticks, between 9/11 and the Great Recession and like go to college and you're going to get a job, but nope, just kidding. You're going to live with your parents until you're 30. Big technology, it's all of these kind of things all happening early, and every generation has that. But we were just kind of like grew up in this, like right when we came to adulthood, became kind of depressed and had to find a way to cope with that and kind of
Yeah.
like pull up ourselves by the bootstraps. So we have raised children where we're like, hey, therapy's been a part of our life for almost the entire meaningful part of it. And so that's all we know. And it's helping us raise boys who have a little bit more acceptability for emotional attunement.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. I mean, I think, and I mean, even just in comedy, it is very common for comedians of all walks of life who are younger than my generation to talk about therapy and things like that. Whereas I think my generation and older guys weren't talking about what they were speaking with their therapist about in stand up sets at all. And you're right too, like the language thing, like, if I'm trying to, fix the weed whacker that keeps breaking and I can't do it and I'm getting frustrated, I just want to throw the thing over the fence and kick something, because anger is like the acceptable thing rather than like, I'm feeling insecure because no one ever taught me how to do these things.
Yeah,
Because I
exactly.
grew up with all women. My mom was working 2 jobs. She didn't have time to teach me how to work the weed whacker.
I mean, but that's exactly it. Like, let's talk about, I will never forget when I was in grad school, I actually learned about the feeling of inadequacy. Like, and as soon as I heard the word, I was like, whoa. Like
Yeah.
that super resonated because I didn't even know that was the name of that thing. Like we all know what that feels like, but I didn't know what to call it because it's not quite frustration or sadness. It's kind of like this apex of like feeling inadequate. I don't know. I don't know how else that makes it feel. It's like, a lot of people are like, oh, rejection is the worst feeling when you go and ask a girl out and they say no. And I'm like, I think rejection is the easy part. I think the inadequacy one is the one that you have to like sit at home at night with of like, she's allowed to say no, but what's not working about me?
Oh,
What's wrong?
yeah.
What's wrong with me?
Yeah,
Right?
because then it's like, okay, now this is real. Yeah.
So yeah, I
That
think
gives me
naming it. Yeah.
that gives me like an idea for a bit, like a social media sketch of like if guys were naming their emotions instead of anger, and it shows like a dude in a fit of rage, like throwing his weed whacker over the fence, and it's like, I just feel inadequate,
Yeah.
and then like some other whatever. Yeah. Because I mean, that's really where a lot of this stuff comes from.
Yeah, it does. It's just kind of really suppressed emotions, and it's a bummer. As a therapist, it's hard because women will talk to other women when they've got a lot of stuff brewing up. They'll go to therapy. And so by the time like a couple wants to come to therapy, it's like the woman has already been talking about it and going to therapy about it for 6 months, a year. And so then men also kind of get like discouraged by therapy because they're
Yeah.
like, they're like inadequate. Like, I just started this. I didn't realize I'm starting this so much further back than you are. And they also just feel like they can never catch up. And that triggers even more big feelings. And so it's just a lot.
Okay, I was working on a bit about that, Erin. So about like how couples therapy is hard because there's always one person who's way further along than the other person. And so going to couples therapy when you're the other person, it's like going on vacation to another country with someone who's fluent and you don't speak the language at all. So now I've got two people speaking in another language about me, and it's like,
Yes.
well, you know what? When he's outside his window of tolerance, he's going to be dysregulated, and we'll hold space for you in a little bit here about that. And I'm just sitting there like the dumb American who's just speaking slowly and loudly, like, I want more sex with me wifo. Sexo,
Yeah.
sex. Why are you
Yeah.
speaking in Spanglish? Like, no comprendo feelings. But yeah, you just feel like, okay, I am like way behind in this whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's real. And so it's one of those things where, I'm a problem solver. Like you say, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a therapist. I look at the world and I'm like, there's like just problems that need to be solved that don't make sense. But we don't have control over individual human beings, what happens to them, what kind of goes on. And so it's like some problems you can't. Well, let me backtrack. I believe in prevention. If we can prevent something from happening, it's way better than intervening. The problem is that prevention requires you to have a little bit of control over the person and the decisions that they may think about. Like, I can preventative illness, I can get vaccines, but I have to have control over the person to get vaccines, right? And so
Right.
it ends up becoming, then medicine becomes the intervention that people who don't choose prevention are in. And I think the same is true for couples therapy. Like, for years, from the therapist perspective, like, we know that the dynamic is that, and I'm just talking about, like, again, overgeneralizing heterosexual couples, but like, we can almost inevitably agree that when they come in, we're going to have to refer the man for individual therapy. And that if we are not very careful, he's going to say this is a conspiracy theory against me, where you're just trying to get me to do more and use more of my money in order to feel seen in my relationship, if it even gets that far. And you're like, no, no,
Right.
no, no, no. Like, and a lot of it comes down to, in the physical, like, if we go with this whole physical world thing, men are really good at being the doers and women are good at being the thinkers. And a lot of times couples therapy can be successful when we can get both partners to agree that it's role playing. Maybe not as sexy, but it's where one person, we have to agree to let them be the teacher and the other one to be the student. So it's where people don't give inherent permission for that. They think that somebody's trying to tell me what to do. Don't try and tell me what to do. Like, you know better than me. But that's how relationships, like that interdependence, should vibe and flow and exist, is that I should be able to be the teacher on the things that I know and experience, and you should be able to receive that, and vice versa. But we get stubborn and we get all those feelings, like of inadequacy, for example. And so it just like shuts us down, and we become like a freaking like one man army to be like, no, 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 no. You're not going to attack me on my watch. And it's just, it's a problem that we obviously need to resolve.
Yeah, and it is interesting too, because I think, like, even knowing, like, I've taught communication classes, took a few graduate level counseling classes, worked in kind of a helping counseling related field for a number of years. So, and done therapy myself and some couples therapy. So I inherently understand some of the things that I should be able to do better than I do, and still fall into things like why do I always want to solve the problem when if my wife is upset about something and she's venting about part of her day or something that's going wrong or something? I know that all she wants is for me to empathetically listen and like
Mhm.
and like validate how she's feeling, that kind of stuff. And I still hear myself going, yeah, maybe you should do this, like, why do we do that?
Well, there's a lot of reasons for why we do that. But most importantly, when we're having empathy for somebody that we're close to, it's really like we're taking on the way they feel. And we want to fix that. We don't want to feel bad, so we don't want them to feel bad. So we project that if I could just fix it for them, then no one's going to feel bad. When the secret sauce is validate their feelings, and then they usually have the power to solve their own problems. But we can't help but want to be helpers. I mean, people that you have strong empathy for are people you don't want to see feeling bad because it hurts you too. There was one of my mentors a long time ago. She always used to say to me, pain shared is pain divided. And so sometimes people need to remember, like in a real logical sense, like if your wife is experiencing something that is harmful or painful, be willing to take on half instead of trying to fix all of it. And so that's like a better way to kind of think about that. Like if she's got this whole big problem and you're willing to take on half of that, that's just sitting there and validating that I'm willing to take this from you versus you saying I need to fix the whole problem. And I find that that's one of those little nuggets that helps people kind of remember that my role is to not fix. My role is to just, in this partnership, I've agreed to take on half of your struggle.
Oh, that's beautiful. Pain shared is pain divided. Yeah, that's a
Shared is
good.
pain divided.
Yeah, that's a good reframe too. Like literally as you're in a loop of, talking with someone thinking like, oh,
Yep.
my job is just to kind of share in this and validate and hear
Just get or
and
like think
empathize.
about physical world. Like think of it as like your wife is carrying 10 big heavy backpacks and you know that you don't have the capacity to carry them all, but that your immediate reaction would be like, let me take care of some of that. And again, it's that physical world where it's very easy to see, I see a problem, I want to fix the problem.
Mhm.
But with emotions, it's there's nothing you can physically pick up. It's emotional. And that is a learned experience. We know how to innately love our partners and our people, and we know how to want to help and make them feel better, and we know how to innately feel, but we do not know how to primally take on somebody else's feelings in a healthy way.
Yeah, yeah.
We
Like
have to learn
I
it.
can share in your sadness or yeah, which is
Yeah.
like not what we want to do because it's like, well, no, I don't want to also feel sad, but we want to see that people understand how we're feeling.
Correct. And the only way
Yeah.
through that, like out is through. Like there's no such thing as like not hitting the emotional like box on the way. You cannot
Yeah.
pass go. You cannot collect $200 if you do not at least check the feelings validation box in any sort of interaction as a couple, whether it be intimate and love and sex. You still have to like, whether it's spoken or unspoken, you still have to kind of like name or acknowledge that feeling, all the way to every single nuanced argument. You still have to call what it is, whether it's right or wrong. Doesn't emotion center of your brain doesn't discern right and wrongness. It just has feelings, and you have to
That's
create space
where
for it.
that's such a good point, and that's where sometimes I get worried about like my message of like coping with life struggles using humor becoming more of a defense mechanism for some people. Like I think there's healthy coping with humor, and then there's like unhealthy. And I think
Mhm.
I'd love your thoughts on it, because my thought is a lot of what you just said about like you still have to at some point feel the feelings. Like the only way out is through. Like you can't just put up this wall of like sarcasm and humor and joke everything off aside and never
Mhm.
actually feel the negative shit that's going on in your life.
That's correct. And my favorite way to use humor is to dislodge people from like chaos thinking. So a lot of people when they're emotionally dysregulated, like whether they're hyperventilating or you can tell that they're just distracted. If you like crack a joke, then you kind of like dislodge. And that
Yeah.
allows them to engage and be like, there's another person here. There's an empathy bound like here, like I can get some of my needs met here. And that is my favorite way to use kind of humor in a crisis. I used to do it all the time. I used to answer crisis phone calls, and it's an art. I would not suggest just doing it if you don't understand like comedic timing or understand the person. But when people would call me and they'd be like, I'm feeling really bad about myself. I'm feeling really this. I'm feeling really that. Like you would just insert a very poorly timed joke and it would dislodge them enough so that they could hear you, so that
Mhm.
they could listen and kind of get them out of their own brain and body. And what's great about humor is similar to it's something somebody else can do for you. Because the things that will dislodge you from kind of that crisis reaction, most of the things you have to do for yourself. Drink water, grab a bite to eat, take a shower, like do something to just attack your nervous system. But with a joke, it's so reflexive when we think something's funny. I'm sure you've been in situations where people are bawling their eyes out and you crack a joke and then you see the smile come through, like they can't help it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's when the distinction I make sometimes between when am I trying to get a laugh and when am I trying to give a laugh? Like
Yeah.
sometimes I'm trying to get a laugh for me
Yep.
because I just need it. It's just the type of person I am, as opposed to I'm trying to give a laugh to, maybe break up somebody's, crisis thinking, or to, get their attention, or to help them feel better, cheer them up. That kind of thing is totally kind of different vibe. But what you were talking about reminds me of a great quote from Jeffrey Gitomer, I think, that says, "The end of laughter marks the height of listening." Like once you get somebody to laugh and they've heard what you said enough to where they have this involuntary reaction to laugh, and you take that breath, it's like, now I can hear it. I mean, I am open to listen to anything you have to say. It's like a whole different level of consciousness there. So yeah,
It
I love
is.
that.
It is. And I've used it in therapy for years and years and years. And you kind of got to just know when. And I would encourage people to take more risks with that. So many people, when they see somebody going through big feelings, they just lean away, or it's the very like ungenuine pat on the shoulder. It's all right. And it's like, don't touch me. But
Right.
when you can make somebody, I would rather people joke more about laughing. Like, and again, not everybody can handle it, but I feel like I'm a really ugly crier. So if I'm crying and somebody comes up to me and they're like, "Oh, why is your face like that?" Like that would make me laugh, just enough to dislodge. And I think that one of the greatest things that has been lost about human connection is people's willingness to take risks in how we meet each other, because they're just so afraid of like the outcome that they're not even willing to do the thing in the first place.
Absolutely. Yeah. I remember, and it's not the best joke ever or anything, but I used to meet with college students when they were in trouble for breaking the law, or, all sorts of stuff, and have the disciplinary conversation about whether or not they could still be a student at the university. And so they were always like pretty scared, a lot of times very emotional in those meetings. And I remember this one young man and his attorney, we come into our meeting, I'm looking over his file, and I was like, "Gosh, so you're a double major, engineering and animal science?" And he goes, "Yeah." And I go, "Man, what are you going to be, one of those people that makes like mechanical bowls?" So stupid. But the attorney loved it because it was a dumb dad joke. He's like, "That's great," whatever. But the kid kind of started laughing because he was like really ashamed. He's like looking down or whatever. And when I said that, he kind of started laughing and goes, "Huh, I'm gonna start telling my dad that's what my plan is." But like that little, like for him to lift his head up and look at me and give me just a little dry smile and kind of joke back with me, that was that moment that we needed, because he was very guarded emotionally. And, those kind of little moments, you're right. Like, and that was a risk for me to do. He could have been like, whatever, but
No, you
you read
idiot.
people and you
Yeah.
read the moment. Yeah.
But I would have rather have him called you an idiot for saying something that didn't hit, because now you have something else to talk about. Now, what would you do if he goes, "No, that was so dumb. What are you, stupid?" What would you have said back?
I probably would have said, "You're right. That was a stupid joke. Tell me more about what you plan to do with animal science and engineering."
Exactly. So there would have been a
educate
new.
me. Yeah.
I always do this with connection because I think about fires together, wires together. So people are like, "Erin, you always do the cut thing," and I'm like, "No, it's two neurons making a connection."
That's funny. Yeah, but you're right though. Like, and it's such a good like improv mindset of like, in improv there are no mistakes, only gifts. Like when somebody stumbles, you use that as a gift that creates part of their character or whatever. And so you're right.
Mhm.
Like even if I had stumbled in that moment, we can then use that as a gift and a springboard onto the next part of our conversation. So yeah,
For sure.
that's a great way to think of it. So, okay, you are a problem solver. And the reason I was excited to really kind of dive into this episode and talk specifically about, we started talking about relationships and men's mental health and sometimes our generalized lack of ability to cue into our emotions and that kind of stuff, is because you have come up with something to help solve this problem. And is a big announcement for the Laugh or Death podcast, because we have our first and our founding sponsor, Caveman to Casanova, which is an awesome app. I'm going to have Erin tell you about it, but this is the official mental health partner of the Laugh or Death podcast. So tell us about this solution that you've come up with for our problem.
Yes, absolutely. So after doing couples counseling for 10 years, I got together with one of my friends who's a male couples counselor, and we're just like, how are we going to fix this problem? Well, men aren't going to magically become more emotionally attuned overnight, and women aren't going to stop talking to their girlfriends about what's going on. So what we need is a tool that allows instead of it being just focused on the full couple, and there's a lot of really good apps and programs and things out there to like enrich your closeness. And I think ours helps too. But really, this is an app for men backed by therapeutic science. It has a coach in the app that helps you kind of navigate. It's called Caveman to Casanova, not because we think men are cavemen. I will say that we've had a couple of men be like, I don't like the name. And I'm like, well, that's because you probably don't like the primal feelings you have that make you feel inadequate, right? But it's a point in time to a point in time where we're really trying to say, hey, let's take what you primally have in there about you. Let's get you some skills to get you from this point in time from being a caveman who's overly primal to this Casanova who's instructional, who like understands some of the depth. And we use some science. We use, there's evidence-based practice, which is when I learn from a research article. And then there's practice-based evidence, which is I learned it from doing it. So there's a lot of practice-based evidence. It's kind of crass. It's very humor driven. Like a lot of men don't want to come in and just be like, tell me about all of your feelings. They want to kind of ease into it a way that feels helpful for them. And so Caveman to Casanova is that solution. We do have a very cool AI coach in there that we call your wingman. And then there's also like this manual. So a lot of what happens with couples, and this is like really breaking it down, and we didn't talk about this yet, is that after they're together for a certain period of time, the woman is like, I want to share my manual with you about how I need to be loved, how I need to be nurtured, how this needs to work. But the man is like, I already know. Right? They think that like in the physical world, they think they know, but there's this evolution happening. And so what happens is the woman's like, I want to share. And he's like, no, I don't need to know that. I don't need to know that. And then she stops sharing and she keeps building this manual of like how to love, how to get laid, how to feel supported, what's her love language. And then she stops sharing it. So it leaves the man like, I just have to try all of these things. So a lot of breakdowns in relationships are men being like, give me the manual. And they're like, no, I don't want to give you the manual. You hurt me when I offered it to you last time. And they're like, give me the manual. I want to do the manual. And they're like, no, I don't want to. And so it's this game where what we've done in Caveman and Casanova is we've given the manual to any man who wants the manual. It is in there via modules, via understanding. Like this is truly what a majority in one of these capacities the women wants. And so there's a women's cut, which is the other side of the app, but men are completely in charge. They get to go through this app the way they want to, the way that their brain works, the way they connect. It gives you date night generators. It gives you reflective opportunities to learn about what is actually working with your specific wife. And you can also invite them in to say, hey, I want you to read this thing I wrote. Or you can send them a message and be like, what do you think about these date night ideas? So that you don't have to feel like you're just kind of, taking a shot in the dark. And so we have really tried to problem solve all of the problems that most men have coming into couples therapy by putting it into an app that they could spend less than 5 minutes a day working through. And you want to know the best part? Because I got to sound like a good salesperson, is that it's
What is it, Erin?
It's only $100 for a whole year. And a therapy session is $150 a session.
Dang. Wow.
So truly, it's $10 a month. It's $100 for a whole year. The whole goal of Pash Company and the things that we're trying to build is make it accessible, not only affordability wise, but make it something that people will actually use, where it's kind of like risk-free to try. Like paying $100, a lot of people would go on a wait list for 8 weeks to get into the couples therapist to then realize that that was a waste of time and money.
Yeah. And also it's like, I could see if there's a guy who's like, okay, something needs to change in our relationship. We're at a point where maybe she wants me to, to go start doing some couples therapy or whatever. It could also be a starting point of like, why don't I try this for a while first and let's see if anything changes or gets better, and kind of go from there. And not to mention, like you said, way cheaper. What I love about it too is having gone through some of it, it's like it just talks to me like another guy would talk to me. Like it. So to me, that's it's not like a bunch of therapists speak necessarily. And there's like even at some modules or pictures is like, okay, which of these two guys is getting laid tonight? And so to me, I'm like, yeah, sometimes as crass as it is, that's kind of the goal because we haven't
That's
been
how a
into
lot
that
of
in a
men
long time or whatever. You know what I mean?
And
Like,
that
yeah.
is like, yeah, I mean, that is just how a lot of men think in their internal dialogue too. Like, there's the risk with Caveman and Casanova is getting criticized in the clinical community where it's like, is that really what you're focused on? No. Yes, no, sure. What I'm focused on is anything that actually helps. So why are we not meeting men where they're at? Where if they're like, the harsh reality, I've learned this as a couple of therapists, and I've been married twice to a man by choice, right? Is is that a lot of the times they do the things because they're motivated by the physical connection. And
Right.
what a lot of them don't understand is that women are also very sexual beings and they want to be connected too, but they have to feel it in their spirit. And so it's like it feels hard to draw a line between emptying the dishwasher and why that should result in more intimacy. But it does, if you understand the manual, it makes complete sense. Because spiritually, if you see how overwhelmed she is or how overloaded she is, if you take one thing off of that in a way she's not expecting, it opens her up to not only feel like spiritually safe and connected, but now she like by way of just like things on a list, now she can check one more off and you can put one on. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like this
Yeah.
is the
Yeah.
checks, it is the checks and balances. And so everyone in pop culture has really kind of made the man woman stuff like too kind of cheeky. And so we're cheeky in how we address a lot of it, but we also give you like the very real relational like, but this is why, and it's not that hard. If you want her to have sex on her mind for that day, like do these three things so that she has literally the mental capacity for sex on her mind.
Well, and
It's that
also
easy.
like people are busy, and we have a lot going on. So like, taking the time to do some of these modules and then being able to like, hey, here's a nice little list of some possible date night things for you and your partner. Like that's helpful because by the time it gets to a point of like, oh yeah, we've got Friday night free. What the hell are we gonna do? I'm exhausted, man. I don't want to make any more decisions or think of more stuff. But it's like, hey, if I'm already doing this thing and it's helping me generate that, like, oh, those are some good ideas. And
Mhm.
yeah, it's to me,
And that's a
those
really good,
like
yeah.
very simple problem solving things are super helpful to me.
And that's really important. I'm glad you brought that up because what you're describing is we're not expecting men to completely change the way they think. It's more about behaving a certain way. And like the most common form of therapy nowadays is called cognitive behavioral therapy. Cognitive is our thought process, behavior is our actions. So really what we want men to be doing is like use all of the resources we've created so you don't have to overthink or try and like literally rewire your brain. And we'll give you the thought behind how you can act differently to get what you want. And so it isn't like there's this so much work you have to do. You don't need to change who you are or how you
Hmm.
think or how you even feel. What you do need to be able to change in your relationship is your actions and the behavior. That is the physical output, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
it's
To me,
grounded
that
in that.
makes it more tangible. Like that makes it just easier, like because there's just small things you can do that make a difference, which is like, that's way easier to me than going like,
Yes.
well, all I have to do is change who I am as a person.
Yeah, change who I am, be 6 inches taller, get a job that makes, at least 7 figures a year. Like none of that matters. And I can't say to all women, but I can tell you for the most of the people who want to stay in their relationship before it gets too far, they just need like these steps taken on either end. And women are, again, in the physical world, I like stand by this as like my own little theory. They need men to lead. And if he can lead with some of these behaviors and actions, then that's where people kind of really get their stride, right? Like to take a step and to get moving. You kind of have to find it. And women are okay leading too, but years and years and years of kind of like feeling like, like if we go back to that moment of like feeling like they're chasing the guy to then being like, I want to tell you all these things about how we're going to make this great, and then not being heard, then they're just going to go somewhere where they are heard. They're not going to stop growing though. And I think that's where men screw themselves over. Like, if you're not going to be the woman who's going to grow with your wife, she's going to grow with someone else. And that's not a threat. It's with her friends, with her career, with her children. And when you feel left in the
with
dust,
her romance novel, smut book, like
yes,
whatever it is, it's like, hey,
romantasy.
yeah, my romantasy book. I'm getting my needs met somewhere, dude.
Exactly. And so men can feel that. They can feel that inadequacy and they don't like it, and they don't have the feelings for how to name it or how to get through it. And it is surprisingly easy to get a relationship back on track with two willing participants. And so this app really is for men, for couples. I think women are going to sign men up for it just as much as men are going to be excited about wanting to do something that feels really kind of low effort, low key. I will still tell you that everything in life, what you put into it is what you get out of it. That is physics. That is not a therapist woman trying to tell you to do more, but it can be low effort to use the app, but it will require maximum output to get what you want out of it. And so it's a fancy way of saying you got to try.
Yeah, at minimum, you got to put in some effort. But what I also like about it is it takes a little bit of the embarrassment, I guess, for away. Like, maybe if you haven't been the best version of yourself, or there are things you could be doing better, or you're just shy about talking about some of that stuff or whatever, you can get a lot of that information and make a lot of those changes kind of from the privacy of your own home, rather than like, well, now I'm going to go talk to this therapist about all this crazy shit that I don't talk to anyone about, and feel like a little bit embarrassed about. So
Yeah, and our app is clearly about education and a coach and all that. But you're right. Like, I think there's probably nothing hotter than a man downloading Caveman to Casanova and not even telling his wife, and just like her being able to notice the behavioral change, because that's hot. I'm sorry, it's hot. When they just do the stuff, you're like, whoa, I've just been waiting. And it kind of just reignites that passion and that connection.
And could you imagine, like, so you do a couple things different around the house. Maybe you've planned a date night or whatever, and then all of a sudden one day she's like, "You've been, things have been so different the last month. What is going on? It's just been so connected. Like, what's going on?" And then you're like, "Well, our relationship's really important to us, so I downloaded this app, and I've just kind of been going through it and learning some things, and wanted to, make sure that we're really connected." Come on, man! Like,
right. Well, not only that, but like I said, there's this women's cut. So if a man wants to do it on his own and then he wants to bring his wife in, there's things she can learn too. There is not an assumption from this app that women are all knowing. That's just not true at all. And we certainly are not. And I like to think that a lot of women are really open to feedback. It's more about giving the men the confidence and the tools and the understanding. And there's parts of the women's cut in the app where men get to actually kind of like hold the woman accountable to be like, hey, I've done all these things and you haven't noticed because you've been too like stuck in your like curmudgeon hatred, and that's not working for me. And then the woman should be like, actually, you know what, you're right. I should have said thank you or acknowledged or whatever. So it becomes a couples app, but where the man is still the one who gets to lead with his own experience.
Yeah. Plus, the one thing I really like about it too is that your wingman's name is Giacomo, which, like, I anthropomorphize everything, or like I make voices in my head and everything. So like, to me, it's got like kind of a Keanu kind of vibe, like, bro, we got this, man. All right. So anyway, so if you can think of whatever vibe you want, but Erin, this is awesome. So if people, men or women, want to download Caveman to Casanova, they can get it at the App Store or Google Play?
Yep, it's out there. It's ready. Start now. It's fully functional. It's got everything you could possibly need. It starts with an assessment, which I think is the most important thing to touch on. We are not trying to pick apart every man. If you don't struggle with hygiene, or that's not a problem in your relationship, that's not where we're spending our time. So this app is for you to take and for her to take if you want to bring her in. And it shows where in your personal relationship you could benefit from making changes. We're not trying to change people. We're trying to keep people together by growing together and making changes that work for their relationship. So it's cool. Google Play Store, App Store. It's really fun. And hopefully it makes you laugh a little bit too.
Awesome. And there's a link wherever you're listening right now. There's a link in the show notes so you can click right there and check it out. And you're going to be hearing more from Caveman to Casanova because they're official sponsor of the Laugh or Death podcast. So we'll be shouting you out a lot more. And Erin, this is awesome. As always, a lot of fun. And thank you.
Of course. I love being here.
You've been listening to Laugh or Death with Paul Ozencup. If you're planning a conference or event and want something smart, meaningful, and actually funny, book Paul to speak. To learn more or to get a copy of his book, The Humor Habit, visit laughordeath.com.